Gardening is such a wonderful way to express your own personal style and creativity. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Join me next as we explore some ways to enliven both your home and garden. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. One of the most rewarding aspects of gardening is that it allows you to become an artist. You can express yourself any way you like. It's like creating a painting. You can choose any of the colors you like and arrange them however your heart desires. One friend of mine has a knack for creating spectacular garden spaces. Her name is Luki Schwartz, and we'll travel to Holland and take a tour of her stunning garden. And if you have an area like a patio or deck and want to turn it into a more private place of relaxation, I'll show you how to create some wooden flower containers that'll give you the perfect hideaway. And if that's not enough, we'll take a look at the beautiful dahlia, and I'll share some planting tips that will ensure that they have a long and colorful life. And of course, there's nothing like a delicious lemon pie to cool off your taste buds during the summer months. I've got a tasty recipe I can't wait to share with you. Now let's make our way to the Netherlands, where Luki Schwartz awaits our arrival. I'll meet you in Holland after the break. Don't go away. Holland is a country known for its windmills, canals, and of course, acre after acre of beautiful tulips being produced for gardeners around the world. And it's in Holland where we find the garden of Luki Schwartz, a well-known editor for a Dutch gardening magazine. Luki has taken a typical-looking backyard space and transformed it into something spectacular.
It's a square piece of land, and it's hard to do something interesting with it unless you use angles. And this path, this gravel path that we're walking on, leads to the back door. And of course, gravel keeps your feet dry in this wet climate.
So you have a dry path
a dry path to the back. Actually, there are 3 ways to get to the back. One over the grass, one through the vegetable patch, and one over the dry path. We also have 3 windows in the back. So there are 3 different paths and 3 different windows, kind of concordant with the house. That's what I wanted to do.
And through each window, you get a separate vista on the garden.
Exactly.
It's very good.
Well, you design a garden from the inside, I think, from inside a house.
Absolutely.
That's very important.
And this house is given to that, I think, too.
Yeah.
It's quite an old house, isn't it?
It's from 1725, yeah. That's a good period for a Dutch house.
Now, I like the way you have taken each of the different areas that you've created in this garden and made interesting little spaces in each of these areas.
Yes. This is how you get a garden to grow all year round, almost all year round. I have about 2 months of nothing. And the 2 months of nothing are okay, because then you have the hedges, the boxwood is kind of the drawing of the garden, and the rest is all painting.
So the boxwood and the shrubs, like the yew and the hedge that you've done in the back with the crataegus or the hawthorn, is the framework of the garden.
That's exactly the skeleton.
Yeah.
You look at a skeleton.
And the spirit of the garden would be all of these beautiful flowers, I suppose.
Yeah.
Even in such a small garden, there are lots of interesting experiences, like we're walking under this arcade of ivies that you have punctuated along the outside with these yews. It's very nice.
Yeah. Well, the yews also counterbalance the temple, because they give you, on the right side of your vision, they give you kind of, from the house, you give kind of heaviness.
Right.
Otherwise, your eyes get sucked into that direction.
They fall too far to the left.
Right. So this kind of counterbalances that, and kind of makes you look to the right again.
Gives some strength to the right.
Right, and it's also pillars.
Yeah,
so
and they frame these little vistas out as we walk along. We can see each a new picture of the garden.
Right, exactly.
How long have you been working on this garden?
Well, we've been living here for 30 years, and on the garden itself I've been working for 20 years.
20 years.
And yeah, I started in '79. I remember planting the hedge. That was the kind of main feature, because that's a hard thing to do.
Right, start with the framework.
Start with the framework, get it all done. Don't make it look too square or too simple. That's why I would put a curve in. But you know how hard it is to visualize a hedge when there's nothing there.
When you're planting small saplings.
There wasn't even the saplings yet,
Yeah,
because I
right.
had to, you know, I used a rope to lay down on the ground.
That's a good idea,
yeah,
very good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's also good to use the rope for the beds. Did you use that for the curved beds?
Not really. I didn't know the rope trick then.
Oh.
I used just my eye.
Yeah, the rope trick, that's
rope
good.
trick,
Or the
yeah.
water hose trick.
water
I've
hose
used the
trick,
water hose to
yeah.
lay out the curved bed.
I think I had a rope. I didn't have a water hose in those days yet.
Well, you've done a nice job laying out the curve in this path, because from the house looking down the path, it
Yeah.
almost looks like it never ends.
It disappears in the distance, in the far, far distance.
And it makes this garden look so expansive.
Yeah, yeah.
Both, I think, the temple in the very back is a focal point, and this path that
Tricks,
yeah, it does
tricks.
trick your eye.
Tricks of the trade, right.
Lukey's tricks of the trade are really no big secret. You see, good principles of garden design are truly international. In Lukey's garden, she's created a sense of depth by using a continuous path and hedges. In my own garden, I've created a similar sense of depth. From the front to the back of the garden, I too have a continuous path, but I've broken it in the center by creating this garden room. Now, the walls of this garden room are made of a hedge, and the entryways, well, they're these mirrored arbors. The arbors also act as a frame for other vistas in the garden. As you can see, it's no secret that Lukey has a real gift for putting together compelling enclosed spaces. But what if your property is unlike Lukey's in that you can't plant directly in the soil? What if you already have a deck or patio that's already in place? Well, I've got some ideas I think you'll want to see. In a space like this, the challenge is, how do you have greenery and create a sense of enclosure when you can't plant directly in the soil? Well, on this deck, I've resorted to using containers all the way around, both for visual interest and for establishing a sense of enclosure. You see, these planter boxes along the edge of the deck help define this garden room. These planter boxes are a simple design that anyone can create. Let me show you how we put them together. Wooden boxes can be beautiful, whether you paint them or let them weather like we're going to with these, but they can have a tendency to rot. That's why we're lining the insides of these with a plastic waterproofing liner that can be formed to the shape of the inside of the container. This product was actually designed for waterproofing concrete, but it works great with wood. It has an adhesive on one side to hold it securely in place. This adhesive automatically makes the seams of this liner watertight. Good drainage is critical in container gardening, so we've elevated the boxes with a few 2x2 boards attached to the bottom. And we're drilling 1-inch drain holes every couple of feet. And to keep the excess water from running out and staining the deck, we're installing a piece of pipe that will run through and down below the deck. When it comes to container gardening, or any other form of gardening for that matter, the soil is the key to success. And it may even be more important here because you see, your plants are almost on little islands. It just makes sense that the larger the container you use, the more at home your plants will feel. The more soil that's in there, the more moisture it will retain, and that'll cut down on the amount of watering you have to do. When it comes to soil for containers, you don't want to fall into the trap of thinking you can just go in the backyard and dig up some soil. You see, this is generally heavy and it doesn't drain well. I prefer to use pre-blended mixes in bags. These are easier to work with, and there's no weed seed in them. These blends are designed to be lighter. You see, the coarse organic material and perlite and vermiculite create air spaces, and peat moss and other forms of humus help retain moisture. And if you ever try to install and support a window box, you'll be thankful for this lightweight mix. Now, this is just about ready for planting. When you garden in containers, you'll discover that you have to be a little more attentive to feeding. You see, frequent watering will flush out many of the nutrients. That's why I like to have plenty of liquid fertilizer on hand. Coming up next, we'll take a closer look at a flower that would be perfect for your garden. And what a great cut flower! It's the gorgeous dahlia. Stay with us. Dahlias are next. There always seems to be something in the garden to dazzle us, particularly late in the season. And an excellent example of this are dahlias. Just look at all of these robust blooms and the festive colors. They can range in height from dwarf, about 15 inches tall, like these Dahlietta and Dallanova, or this one called long life, or they can grow as large as giants, which grow to about 6 feet or more. To produce outstanding blossoms such as these, you'll want to make sure you give them plenty of sun. One of the things I like about dahlias is they're not fussy about soil. Any average garden soil will do. When you fertilize, you want to make sure you don't give them too much nitrogen. You see, this will cause them to produce fewer blooms and soft, weak stems. If you live in a part of the country where cold winters and hard frosts are the rule, it's important to lift dahlia tubers or the roots from the ground and store them. I like to dig them at least with a 1-foot diameter root ball, lift soil and all, and put them in a cool, dark, dry place, and then cover them with dry sand or sawdust until I'm ready to replant them in the spring. In mild climates, dahlias are regarded as perennials and can be left in the ground through the winter by simply mulching the plants after you've cut them back in the fall. The way I see it, these flowers are worth any extra trouble you may have to go through to keep them from one year to the next. And another great thing about dahlias, they make good long-lasting cut flowers. And as you can imagine, with this kind of color, they can make a bold splash in the garden. Next, I'll show you how I use color in my garden with some outstanding geraniums. That's after the break, so don't go away. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome back. In today's show, we're exploring small space gardens and all the bounty you can produce in such a limited area. You know, so often people say to me, "How big is your garden? It looks like it's several acres." Well, it's actually not. It's only 100 by 150 feet, a double lot. You see, the house sits in the middle and really takes up most of the square footage. There's a funny story about the house. When I found it, it was several miles from where it sits today. It wasn't in very good shape, and I asked the owners about it if they were willing to sell it. To my surprise, they said, "Sell it? You can have it if you'll move it to a new location and restore it." I said, "You're on." I just couldn't bear to see this wonderful little cottage destroyed. The style of the home is colonial revival, dating from the turn of the century. And I'm pleased that it's now the center of my garden and that I get to share it with so many of you each week through this program. It is interesting how the camera does seem to make things look larger, but actually, I think it's through the illusion of design that my garden looks larger than it actually is. You see, it may seem counterintuitive, but by taking a space and dividing it into small compartments, it actually feels larger. You see, I've divided my entire garden into a series of garden rooms. These garden rooms give me many different areas in which to be creative, while making the garden appear as though it goes on and on in a circuit around the house. I also use color to create illusion of depth in the garden. In certain garden rooms, evergreen hedges serve as a background. Here the plantings follow a certain color theme, namely a cool color palette of blues, whites, and lavenders. Cool colors make a space feel larger and more expansive. Now, on the other hand, if you want to make a space feel more intimate, visually smaller, then lean on hot, warm colors. Now, an example of this, which is quite the extreme, comes from crocosmia. Just take a look at this variety called Lucifer. Its deep, fiery red-orange blooms certainly grab your attention. Both its color and name make you think of a hot place. And as you can see from this amazing field in Holland, a little splash of this plant can go a long way in making a statement in the garden. Speaking of color, just look at how this bouquet is coming together. You know, I love this time of year in my garden. The end of the growing season is full of abundance, and the colors, well, they all work together so beautifully. Just look at how these tiny rust-colored bulbs complement the Mexican sage. And look at this dahlia with the yellow center. This one's called Boogie Woogie. You know, you don't have to have a large garden to have beautiful flowers. In fact, you can achieve beautiful results on a patio or terrace with containers. A natural for producing an abundance of color is the old-fashioned geranium. I particularly like this new variety called Tango Pink. It has an attractive lavender pink flower that's perfect in combination with whites and other pastels. Known for its colorful flowers and dark, rich leaves. The plants have been praised by gardeners and plant breeders for their heat tolerance and garden performance. They grow to about 12 to 18 inches high, Tango geraniums bloom continuously from late spring until the first fall frost. All right, now let's move from the garden into the kitchen for a cool treat with one of this season's most popular and versatile fruits, the lemon. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is a great time of year to enjoy the abundance of the garden. You know, I especially love lemons. They can be enjoyed in so many different ways. It's difficult for me to let summer go by without enjoying a tangy lemon dessert. Lemons taste and smell so fresh. They're an ideal way to cool these last dog days of summer. I like recipes that are simple and don't require a lot of time in the kitchen. I'm preparing a shaker lemon pie, which is one of those great old-fashioned dishes. I especially like this one because it uses the entire lemon, well, except for the seed. Now for this pie, you'll need a double pie crust, one for both the top and the bottom, and a deep dish 9-inch pie pan. Now you can make it easy on yourself by using one of these pre-made pie crusts. You can pick them up at the grocery store in the dairy section. Now I'll start with 5 medium-sized lemons, and I'll remove all of the zest first. Add this zest to 2 1/4 cups of sugar and 6 large eggs and whip it all together. Save one of the egg whites for the crust. Slice 5 of the lemons as thin as possible and remove the seeds, and then add the lemon slices to the mixture. I simply pour the mixture into one of the shells and cover with the remaining. Just pinch the edges together, cut a few slits in the top, and brush on the extra egg white. Now I'll bake this in a preheated 350-degree oven for about an hour. This lemon pie is excellent served with fresh whipped cream, a sprinkle of powdered sugar, and a sprig of mint for a beautiful presentation. It's a delicious taste of summer that anyone would want to try. Well, that's it for today's show. I've certainly enjoyed our time together. And just look at my bouquet, I finished it up. It's a wonderful example of the abundance and beauty the garden has waiting for us. Now, if you'd like any information from today's show, including that delicious lemon pie recipe, just check out my website. That's pallensmith.com. Until next time, from the garden, I'm Alan Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.